My presentation is on electric cars and the environment. So the big question is, are electric cars really better for the environment than fossil fuel cars? First thing I'd like to do is just take a class survey. So by a raise of hands, how many of you guys know either a family member or like a friend or classmate that owns an electric car? Okay, 16, and then out of the people that we have in here today, that's just like a pretty big percentage. So these are some cool facts. The reason that I did that survey was just to prove this fact. It's kind of interesting. As of 2018, only 2% of the American population owns electric cars, with Vermont being the leading state. That just kind of blew my mind because I feel like I know quite a few people that own an electric car, but I guess not that many people really do. So electric cars initially produce more emissions than gas-powered cars because of the production of the battery. The lithium-ion battery is very hard to get to. So the average lithium-ion battery in a small car weighs approximately 150 kilos or 330.693 pounds. And in 2018, the United States consumed an average of about 20.5 million barrels of petroleum per day. That can be also recognized as 7.5 billion barrels of petroleum in a year. So this is just general generation of electricity in the U.S. by source. 65% of all energy produced in the U.S. comes from fossil fuels alone. And fossil fuels are not eco-friendly. They can't be reproduced so they just, once they're used, they're gone. And the next runner-up would be nuclear power plants. They are accounted for 20% of the total production or generation of power in the U.S. And I didn't know this, but there are nuclear power plants that can be found in the U.S. They reside in Mississippi, New Jersey, Virginia, Florida, Michigan, Connecticut, Ohio, and South Carolina. So people that think electric cars are beneficial for the environment, they say an average conventional car will spew out 60,000 pounds more carbon pollution than an average electric vehicle. That's pretty crazy to think about. That's a lot. They also prefer electric cars because there's less moving parts in them, and they would obviously, with less moving parts, require less maintenance. And then after the production of the battery, there's less total emissions than gasoline cars. And while you're driving around, there's no direct emissions of gasoline, but the only thing that would have to be accounted for would be the charging of the car. So people that support fossil fueled cars, the heavy using coal states, they prefer fossil fuel cars, usually because obviously electric cars can't be charged on a reliable, eco-friendly power source if it's coal or petroleum producing energy states, So those states, Wyoming, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Illinois, and Kentucky. And in these states, it's interesting, emissions are assumed to be 4 times greater in heavy coal and using reliant states. Here's a short video for you guys. I think there's an ad, sorry.
Searching for a beach vacation? Find it at Verbo. They search millions of homes to find your perfect beach.
Hello, everyone.
Let me skip to where I need to be.
If we take the amount of carbon for gasoline vehicle production and add to that the amount of annual emissions multiplied by T for time, and set this equal to the amount of carbon for electric vehicle production and add to that the amount of annual emissions also multiplied by T, then by solving for T, we get the exact number of years required in order for an electric car to have less lifetime emissions than a gasoline car. Putting in the numbers for the average gasoline vehicle in the United States against the average 30 kilowatt hour battery electric car using the average energy mix, we find out that after just 1.67 years, an electric car is already producing less emissions than its gasoline competitor, with many, many years of useful life to come. In fact, even if you had to replace the battery, meaning you had the additional carbon of that second battery's production, you'd still break even in less than 3.5 years. And clearly batteries are going to last far longer than a couple years because manufacturers are providing 8-year, 100,000-mile warranties with them.
So that video, before the part that I showed you, it's a pretty long video. It's like 13 minutes, but it goes over. So first, it makes a common base for the electric car battery versus a gasoline-powered car. So it does an average of where both cars have the same amount of emissions produced off of production. So then it's a clean, even slate of when they're starting, and obviously as you saw in that video, the gas car has more emissions than the electric car. So my solution, I think that obviously we don't have the most reliable energy source production in the United States. As you saw in one of my previous slides, 65% of all energy in the U.S. is produced from coal and petroleum. Things that could be done, I think we could find more reliable sources of energy such as like solar power or hydro dams. But yeah, other things, you could purchase an electric car or just recommend electric cars to friends and family. And there's my works cited. Any questions? Chloe?
So are electric cars more expensive to make?
They